Alright, so I've like kind of been keeping up with the art commentary community. For those that don't know, the RCC is one of the biggest like hellscapes on the internet. It is such a petty and annoying, and everyone's like super sensitive. It's a really funny side of the internet to kind of like watch in the background when you're bored a little bit. But recently a situation started that is just so interesting to keep up with in the background. It's not really worth a deep dive into, but it's kind of just entertaining in a sad and ironic way. So there's this member of the RCC called Synnibear03. They've been around for a minute. They made animation meme videos back in the day. They kind of talk about whatever goes on in those corners now. They made a video talking about former YouTuber Spoctertech about when he was 16, he had a fling with a 13-year-old, then went on until he was 17 and they were 14, and nudes were exchanged. Now yeah, it's kind of weird, but like, let's be real, 3-year age gap is not a big deal. I've defended it before in plenty of my videos I made on my channel. But you know what? The RCC is a lot more, how do I put this? They jump on people a lot harder than most communities online for stuff like this. Now that story ran its course, blah blah blah. Well, on September 9th, somebody would make a document calling out Synnibear for being weird in their Discord server. And the main story at hand is how when they were 19, she was talking to a 17-year-old weird. I don't care about that at all. I don't care. I do not give a single shit about a 19-year-old talking with a 17-year-old some type of way. That's normal. Anyone who pretends that isn't normal is either malicious or stupid. Now the part that caught my interest is in the rules where it says in rule 4, no NSFW topics, this server is 13 plus and there are minors. You know what? Fair. Makes sense, right? Well, Cindy was getting a bit weird with it by posting like risque type art, and you already know how this stuff kind of works on the internet. You don't push something like that. It's stupid and could get you in trouble even if your intentions aren't malicious. So yeah, you know, don't do that kind of stuff. She would do this a couple times in the server, and again, it's bad. You shouldn't be doing this, especially when you acknowledge there are minors in the server, yet you're doing it. Like, this image is blurred out. Like, for all I know, she could be wearing clothes. In fact, it kind of looks like there is clothes because you can see, like, the bra strap, but still, just don't push something like this. It's dumb. And then they'd also talk weird in some of the general chats, like being horny and whatnot. Like, come on, dude. You know there are minors in there. You acknowledge it yourself. You say no NSFW, then you talk NSFW. And for anyone who like thinks, oh, you know, maybe someone else might have wrote the rules, or maybe she doesn't fully understand her audience as minors despite being a fucking art YouTuber or whatever, there's a text of her saying, of course my audience is full of minors, so that's, you know, wrapped up. Now when looking into this, it was one of those, yeah, like you shouldn't be doing that, you should know better type of situations. You're 20 years old and you're doing this and you're talking this type of way in a server that you own and run, and you acknowledge there are minors, and like, come on, bro. Like, it's an L, but it's not like, oh my god, it's over. Career over defining. Like, it's like, nah, bro, just get better about it. So I left it at that. That was the story, right? Well, there's one text that I saw that caught my attention. And in this text, Cindy talks about someone named Jack. Now, Jack is someone named Birdie, who I know was a controversial, like, artist when they were, like, a young teenager all the way up until probably, what, a year ago? I'm not too familiar with the Birdie lore. I just know they're weird. Like, really weird. Like, apparently they got their pet ferret to lick them down there when they were 13, which is fucking crazy, but I don't know. If this is real, someone tell me, because again, I don't really know Birdie's lore that much, and it's frankly just a fuck ton of shit to dig through. The point is that in this text, they say how they were in love with Birdie and were waiting for them to break up with their GF or BF or whatever, and then present myself to him. I knew he'd have no choice but to date me because he's so desperate to be in a romantic relationship, he'll just latch on to whoever gives him attention. I feel so awful knowing that I was completely willing to emotionally manipulate Jack when he was mentally unstable, and as soon as I left, I saw him prove me right. Now that's weird. I ain't gonna lie about it. That is a weird thing to say about anybody, no matter what. She knew that once Birdie was gonna break up with somebody, she'd immediately hop on a chance to date him, which is just, it sounds so crazy. Like, I know some people like, wait, like, oh, you know, I want to date this person, but I'm gonna wait till they break up. But the way she like goes about it, like she knows she's being emotionally manipulative about it, it's just so bizarre. On September 13th, she'd post an update on her community tab saying how she's reading the doc and that she'll be addressing everything in the videos soon. But again, you know, this is not the worst situation ever. It's something where she's like, hey, you need to stop doing this, knowing that there are minors around, even if you're not like being malicious to a minor or you're trying to like hit on a minor, just stop. So it seemed like one of those situations where she will learn from it and move on to be a better person, right? Well, for those that don't know, this story got a whole lot worse very quickly after that document came out. Now there's a reason I mentioned that Spocter situation. Just a refresher, Cindy made a video on a guy who when he was 16 had a fling with a 13-year-old and went on until 17 and 14. Well, Birdie would make a video exposing Cindy for, at 20, was talking some type of way with a 14-year-old. The irony is so fucking palpable here, but I digress. The point is that Synni is a fucking freak. Now, in the video, Birdie also alleges that Synni sexually assaulted them as well. But given that dynamics vary from person to person and no one's really there to prove whether this happened or not, I'm not going to get into it, and it's very serious to say it happened when there's no evidence. But the point is that Synni will confirm the grooming part to be true as they make a response video titled, "I'm so sorry," and talk about it.
I was going to make a video talking about a recent document that was released about me, but the situation has gotten much more serious as I realize the damage that I've caused. I've been an irresponsible content creator, and I've been acting inappropriately towards my fans. This alone is enough for me to realize I need to make sweeping changes to how I conduct myself and how I interact with my fans. But the most serious thing I've done is I've groomed a minor. I became friends with a 14-year-old after I made a mental note to myself to not become friends with minors again, and I overshared with them. I shared graphic, explicit materials with them when I shouldn't have. I groomed this child, and I knew what I was doing was wrong.
Now, alongside this would be an 188-page Google Doc of just screenshots of the minor. And just to prove that Synni knew they were a minor, well, you can see it on screen right there. They said, "I'm 14, so that wraps that whole part up. Now, what I noticed is that Synni wasn't necessarily hitting on the minor themselves. They were hitting on a character that they made, which as far as I know was like an adult character. But she would constantly make NSFW artwork of her character and that character together and sending it to the minor, as well as a bunch of NSFW comments about sex positions and how she likes choking or spanking or whatever. This is stuff that you do not talk to a minor about whatsoever, and we can prove that Synni knew they were a minor because when they very first met, the minor told her their age. Synni even drew up this whole comic with the character and a bunch of other characters, which, even though it doesn't show her sending it to the minor in question, the fact this is in the document, it's more or less likely that she sent this comic to the minor and it gets NSFW at points, and I'm not going to show any of that. Yeah, this is a pretty straightforward situation of grooming. There really isn't any other way to put it. Again, this is not a 17-year-old talking to a 14-year-old. This is a 20-year-old talking to a 14-year-old. Birdie will end up starting a GoFundMe so they can move out and find another place and get to their goal pretty quickly within the day, if I remember right. But they'd also start acting like a child about it. Like they bought a cap that says groom and put it on Synni's bed before they left her. Like, I get it, yeah, Synni is not a good person for what they did, but like, this is kind of corny, bro. Now it gets even weirder as people would find out that she had an alt account on Instagram called Lolly Molly, and it turns out that she would pretend to be a minor who doesn't really know how to draw well because she enjoys people thinking that she's a minor. That's just weird, dog. What the fuck is this? Like, y'all art people, bro, listen, I ain't got an issue with, like, y'all on, like, a level it's like, you know, draw your shit, but what, like, can someone fucking explain this to me? This is fucking weird. Even if you take away the whole grooming situation, what the fuck why would someone do any of this shit? Also, some leaked messages from back in February this year would show that Jack/Birdie wasn't even paying rent when living with Synni. At least at the time they were sent, of course, but it's just like, man, this whole situation just goes a little bit deeper every single step you take. Some text messages that also leak out of Synni saying how they want to kill Jack and how they're extremely paranoid now that everything's going down. Which, you know, I understand, you know, the emotional response. Again, this is a very stressful situation for every side, but this does not make her look any better whatsoever. Now, everyone has their moments or they crash out, but this is one of those crazy crash outs because clearly, Synni just looks fucking crazy when reading these messages. Now, Synni will end up deleting her confession and make a response to everything going on defending herself, and I'm just gonna keep it real here. It's not that good, I'm not gonna waste that much time going into it, but like, there's a point, for example. She compares her being 20, talking to the 14-year-old, as if it's locker room girl talk.
Locker room girl talk. I myself have never been very social. I would even call myself socially inept. I'm a bit of a retard. So I never considered that there was an existing dynamic that sounded similar to my conversations. This was two girls talking about Jeremiah down the block and how hot he is. Once again, I feel the need to make this painfully clear that I am not excusing how I talked to Enno. It was inappropriate, it was irresponsible, it was negligent, and I shouldn't have done it. I regret it a lot.
Now, the example she gives makes sense. It does make sense a bit, you know? Two girls gossiping about someone down the street and talking some type of way. Except, she's 20, talking to a 14-year-old. Like, I don't need to explain to you guys that when you're 20, talking some type of way to a 14-year-old, it doesn't matter if you're not, like, engagingly flirting with the 14-year-old in question. you don't send NSFW art, and you don't talk about NSFW topics with them. It's very fucking simple. There's also this part where Synni says how they didn't technically talk about sex with a minor, but rather masochism and sadism, which I mean, at that point, clearly she's just grasping for straws, but I mean, she admitted it, you know, I'll play the clip right now, so there's no like weird confusion going on here.
Now that I think about it, majority of the inappropriate conversations we had revolved around sadomasochism and like sadistic fantasies, not really sex. Sex was definitely brought up, but it was never my intention to educate NO about it.
Now, majority of the videos ranting about Birdie and how Birdie is lazy and whatnot, how Birdie would never pay rent, never got a job, how Synni was basically carrying them, which maybe is true. Again, I don't really know their dynamic, but I don't really care that Birdie is like a lazy mooch or whatever. At least in this case. Like, it's one of those situations where it's like, okay, Birdie has a history. I know Birdie has a history. Again, I don't know about it. But if you decided to live with this person, you should have at least expected Birdie to be a mooch or a lazy or not be able to get a job or whatever. Synni decided to give it a shot, and if Synni had to deal with all that, that sucks. But that isn't relevant to the situation at hand. Now, is Birdie still being annoyed about it on Twitter? Yeah, again, you know, that grooming hat shows the kind of personality and the kind of maturity to expect from him, but I don't care about that in this situation. Now, I would like to dig into the video a bit more, but the stuff I showed you already is already the worst stuff. Again, Synni at 20 was talking some type of way with the 14-year-old. There's no way that Synni or anybody, as a matter of fact, is going to get away with this. I'm sorry, that's straight up. Someone on Twitter will also leak that Synni was venting to them about the whole situation and how, like, they're hurting and whatnot. And at one point, would even admit to buying a knife, pepper spray, and a crowbar, and also feeling that they need to buy a gun because they are so paranoid that someone's out to get them now. Now, she would find out that the person was a minor and cut him off, which again, you know, smart move to make, the right move to make, except the minor would come back and say how they need someone to vent to because they have no friends or whatever the fuck. And instead of Synni standing her ground and being like, I cannot speak to you, she would invite them to conversation by saying, if you need a vent, that's okay, pet. Also, before finding out they were a minor, they would show off a piece of their journal entry talking about the situation going on and how stressed she is. And she would show off her frustration with everything going on around her by drawing a picture beheading Birdie, which, you know, I understand venting art pieces, venting journal entries. Artists do that kind of shit all the time. They're very emotional. But why the fuck would you show this to somebody who you don't even fucking know, dude? I think this really sums everything up going on here. Synni keeps digging herself a deeper hole. She initially comes out saying she groomed somebody, then tries to take it back but fails because the facts are 20 and 14. And then a random ass person that for all intents and purposes she barely knew, she feels comfortable enough to send an art piece that makes it look extremely fucking crazy. Yeah, she's cooked. She's not coming back from this. This isn't like a small situation where someone could maybe come back from it, you know, maybe a 4-year age gap. No, this was 6 fucking years. I'm sure maybe some more developments will be made, but honestly, it seems that everything's kind of wrapped up now. So unless some crazy shit comes out after this, I'm gonna call it a day. Is there a lesson to be learned here? Like, it shouldn't be a lesson to say, hey, don't talk sexually with kids, but welcome to the fucking internet, everybody.